Atheist Nomads, episode 247, Fighting About Condiments.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin. Joining me is Lauren.
Hello.
We've got little baby Kylie, so don't be surprised when she makes some noises.
Her mouth is full of toes at the moment, so
Yes.
we're hoping to keep that up.
But she should be good. And we have Mikey Pullman back.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Oh, he's got his radio voice going.
Oh my god.
We just need to get one of those keyboards with all the wacky sounds.
Ping. I know, right? There it is.
Make your own.
Make it our own.
Fart noises.
Yeah, so what do you got
Foley
coming
artist.
up?
The Atheist Comedy Show is on May 18th at the Visual Arts Collective, the VAC in Garden City in downtown Boise,
We
Idaho.
are so excited for this show.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I have a great lineup of comedians. Definitely a lot of classics and a new great comic that's an atheist that nobody has seen on one of these shows yet.
Oh, nice.
Woo.
Yeah, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Sherry's going to be there with us. Jen Adams, Lady Business, and Chadwick Heft.
Yes.
So
Okay.
a mix of favorites. I mean, obviously, I bring in Lady Business pretty much every time now.
Oh, they're just amazing, and we're hoping to get them back on the show here pretty soon. We're trying to bribe them with a baby.
Yeah, you give them a baby. Take the baby.
Hold the baby.
No, but yeah, if you're in the area and you haven't been to the Atheist Comedy Show, you need to go.
It's May 18th,
And
Yeah.
if you're not in the area,
2018, for those of you living in the future.
flights into Boise are really easy. We
Yeah,
have
cheap.
connections to lots of places. They tend to be cheap as long as you don't fly through Salt Lake.
And Dustin and I will come pick you up from the airport.
And May is beautiful here.
Oh,
It really
nice.
is. When it's not snowing.
I know, right?
Like, if there's ever a time to come to Boise, it's May.
Yep.
That is like the month.
Gotta be
Yarp.
May.
You know what they say about the 1st of May? Good time for fucking. I think that's a Jonathan Colton thing.
That is Jonathan Colton, I think.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. The first day of spring.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into the news.
Do it.
Last week, we talked about how Dave Silverman had been suspended. Well,
Update.
yes.
He's still suspended, though.
Shortly after that episode was released, the American Atheist Board met and unanimously voted to fire him.
You fired.
That's not common for a board like that to unanimously fire the president.
No. So, so maybe some tensions are starting to prickle in the back of your mind saying, oh, please don't let it be this. Please don't let it be this.
So the thing that had started it all off was some undisclosed conflicts of interest, some probably financial, and one involving a sexual partner of his who he had appointed to a job at American Atheists. Definite conflict of interest there. And there was other things that that still haven't been, at least I haven't seen what specifically it was. And then as soon as the suspension was announced, 2 sexual assault accusations came out.
Bam.
Boom.
There's the other foot.
There it is.
Yep.
Damn it, dude. I know when Dustin was describing this to me, he's like, conflict of interest. I was so relieved. I was like, oh, thank God it wasn't sexual harassment.
It was
And
gonna
then
be
he followed it
sexual
up. I'm like, son of a... It's like, come on, man. Come on.
So one complaint was from the 2015 American Atheist Convention, where the woman who, in at least to BuzzFeed, is just using her first initial, R. She'd known Silverman for quite a while. They flirted throughout the evening, or at least he flirted with her, and then he got her to join him for smoking some pot on the roof, and then he forced himself on her.
That's not a really good. It's not a really good way to meet women.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. So when she started saying no, she believed that he knew that she was interested in BDSM, and then wrote that off, and also other insulting language she was using, like calling her a dirty little whore, pushing her to her knees.
So they kind of skip over this. So he said he knew that she was into BDSM.
She is sure that he knew she was.
Okay, so just because he went right into that, which just speaks to a misunderstanding of that entire community and how they function.
Yeah.
It's
It's really hard to communicate that to somebody, especially if somebody you're just trying to get a one-off with.
So it was finally
Right?
when she used the safe word red that he stopped.
Yeah, he used the generic like stop sign word, like which is actually just it's a generic stop word, red.
Yeah.
And it triggered him into stopping.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just weird that he would know that.
Now, what?
Not that he would know that, but that he would know that in context that she was into it and then try to use it against her. That's some sneaky shit right there.
Well, like one of the things I know about the BDSM community from listening to the Savage Lovecast is
free plug.
You negotiate everything before you start.
Yeah, it's about trusted communication.
So if you're going to
like
be
so
getting
many things, you guys.
If you're going to get kinky, the ethical, reasonable way, you negotiate what is and is not okay.
Ethical kink.
And then
new podcast name called it.
And then once
so sexy.
But once you've negotiated it, then whatever you're doing within the bounds of that negotiated consent is okay.
Because nothing's sexier than consent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to overly explain it, but yeah, I mean, you're essentially correct. When you have a partner that you share that part of that lifestyle in, there's definitely periods of time when you're very upfront about where you're at and your expectations. A lot of people don't necessarily understand that a lot of the control of these situations has to be with the submissive because they're the one who is under the most stress and pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And to be the person who is in that relationship with someone who's in a more submissive place forces you to learn how to be more sensitive and empathic to what the needs of your partner really are. So it's really more about that than almost anything else.
Which is why it throws me off when people try to do one-night stands or one-offs while implementing a lot of this stuff, because there is not a lot of opportunity for thorough communication, and misunderstandings happen, and
it's sex enough
people
is
get
random.
hurt.
Like, it's difficult already to just have
it's already hard to
vanilla
think
sex with
straight.
people. I imagine.
Yeah, straight. Vanilla.
All right, so the second incident was from 2012 when Rose St. Clair was a student.
That's a good name, by the way.
Yes.
God, love that. Right? It sounds like the name of a boat.
She was a student at William and Mary College.
Spy, but I like the boat.
But she was a student at William and Mary College. She attended the Secular Student Alliance Convention in Columbus, Ohio.
She's an activist, and she's been involved in the movement for a while.
Yeah. At that point, she was wanting to make it a career being an atheist activist.
Which some people do.
And she got invited to join some of the speakers of the conference, including Silverman, at the bar. And then he pressured her into having sex with her, well, after getting her drunk, so that, and kind of suggesting that she needed to get a job. And then afterwards, he told her that, they've had sex, so it'd be a conflict of interest, so he can't give her a job.
Ooh.
It's very predatory. It happens. It's one of the things about the Me Too movement, just underlying all of this, is men in power utilizing that power to manipulate women into situations where men can take. It's not about sharing, because these situations can happen organically, which is why it's not always bad when people meet. But this paints a picture of him intentionally and with foremalice going in and just fucking up this person's life and then just bailing on it.
Yeah.
And that behavior is, despite all the language, it's that attitude and that angle that's the worst. Everything he did is garbage.
Right, because if she had known up front that she had no chance of getting a job with him,
then yeah, she would have maybe she would have made different decisions. We have to respect her autonomy. And when she comes forward, it's not like, people always want to oversimplify these situations. Like, well, at some point she must have realized he was a creep, right? Yeah, but I don't think you guys realize how often dudes are just randomly creepy. Like, just being in room with women, we're just dirt about it so often. And a lot of that gets filtered out. Like, well, maybe he's weird sometimes, but maybe also social pressures. And we frequently gaslight women just as a group, telling them that their feelings are not necessarily valid and not to trust their instincts. Plus, fuck this guy. Seriously, I'm glad he's off.
Yeah.
Which is too bad, because the right the religious right really hates this guy.
Oh yeah. Well, he adopted some of their tactics,
which is what made him so effective.
To stick it to them, and
I do that on Facebook.
It was, his billboards. He pushed the limits, which kept them in the news, and then they stopped pushing the limits. Because the limits moved, he pushed the limits out and moved on to more judicial approaches using the legal system.
Boring stuff.
But a really good way of doing it. He has been a regular on Fox News.
That takes balls.
Yeah.
You just have to want to be that person. The skeptic is always the odd person out.
Yeah.
In those situations.
But it takes, I'm surprised he didn't burn out before he burned himself out.
He was doing this. The second story is from 6 years ago.
Yes.
And when we look at another huge part of this, and it's easy to lose the layers of how complex this scenario is. We're talking about systems in place that are just patterns replicating of men abusing their power to be predatory towards women and it being normalized. What we're doing now is we're identifying these and having the conversation about how it's not okay for you to use your power to manipulate a woman into having sex with you with the knowledge that she's going to... There's nothing on the table that you're putting out there that's real.
Right. And for the goal of just getting laid.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, just getting laid.
It is difficult. I don't like it, but nobody just shows up like this. Nobody does this kind of stuff one time. It really makes you wonder how often throughout.
Right. If they did it one time, you'd never hear about it.
Right. And as atheists, I feel we're always under a magnifying glass.
Lots of scrutiny.
Just tons of scrutiny. And this is definitely a guy, him screwing up like this, it hurts because we're already a marginalized, persecuted group legally anyway, and it doesn't do anybody favors. So fuck this guy for being who he is, fuck this guy for what he does to women, and double fuck this guy for what he does to just everything that he's supposed to represent.
Yep.
Like, how dare
ruining
you
it
act?
for the rest of us.
How dare you
How
act?
are we supposed to walk around with a pretentious air of moral superiority when...
I can still do it.
Oh, well, some of us stink of it, but...
Yeah, gotta get... That smug look never leaves.
It's almost as good as driving a Prius, right?
Yeah.
I'm a smug atheist in a Prius.
Listening to NPR. I love it.
I'm gonna buy a scooter.
Vespa.
It is worth noting... Dave Silverman has been on Atheist Nomads twice, episode 55 and 239. Mm-hmm. That most recent was only 2 months ago.
Yeah.
He's not going to be back on the show.
No.
That's fair.
As a rule of thumb, and this is actually one of the things that kind of this story, because the BuzzFeed article about this, and BuzzFeed seems to be the ones doing the best at exposing this stuff.
Isn't that weird?
They hit
the
Lawrence
gossip
Krauss,
column is
but it's not gossip. They're
That's
vetting
what they
it
used
with
to be.
Right, yeah, they're vetting it with numerous sources.
Well, they're doing... The need for journalism is always going to exist, and we removed a lot of it, but there's still... Somebody still needs to do this stuff. So I'm glad there's people that step up, because that service to your community, finding a niche and filling it.
But what's interesting is the American Atheists press release on their website about Silverman being let go had a link to the BuzzFeed article.
That's funny.
With the details on why.
Maybe they got it all right. I mean...
It legitimizes them.
And also it insulates them from Silverman going after them with a lawsuit that they're slandering him.
Yeah.
It is
push that off to the media, a media organization that can get free press protections.
Yeah. And any of these... I know we're not past this part of the culture yet, but there's doubtless people that are listening that are like,
but Atheist Nomads, he hasn't even been formally accused in a court yet, and he hasn't been convicted of anything. Shouldn't we treat him like he's innocent?
And what I would say to you is you need to get your voice fixed. That's pretty messed up. But also, you shouldn't sound like that. That's not normal. Also, we treat people as they are, and the system and the court system exists so that we can have legal ramifications. But if an entire board is convinced, then that at least says that there's more to this, maybe.
Yeah.
Like there's something compelling.
That's why they call it social justice. It's because it's not...
Justice doesn't work.
Some stuff doesn't...
We already know that.
Doesn't go through legal precedent. It goes through how the society around you reacts to what you've done. Which is why, even though you have a legal freedom of speech, you can't go around just saying whatever you want, because the people around you are still going to socially react to what you're going to say, which, you get punched in the face for being a Nazi kind of thing.
as far as David Silverman specifically goes, it was probably 2012 or 2013 out on the patio of Tom Graney's. Susan Harrington, then president of Idaho Atheists, told me about all the reasons that she hates Dave Silverman.
No, she was right. How about that? Isn't that weird?
And I listened to all of it, and at that point, it sounded like it was just a difference in opinion on how the organization should be run. But it was a little bit more than that. And then she actually severed Idaho Atheist ties with American Atheists because of what she saw Dave Silverman doing.
It's possible he was also just a jackass.
And you
can be more than one bad kind of people.
And kind of the line that I would kind of draw from that to what we know now, yeah, he's just an asshole.
It's possible. It's just so frustrating. You want to believe that it's easy to not be like this as a person. I just put myself I'm just a moderately funny, moderately attractive, average ginger. I'm chunky. I'm not special. I don't have a ton of money. I get to have sex. Is it that I do understand there are people who are naturally undesirable. I'm saying not, and by, I don't mean that in a condescending way. I just mean that it's easier for some people to do this than others. If you have, certain social disabilities that keep you from interacting, it's a lot harder to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
But it's difficult if you're the president of a group of people. That's not your problem. I struggle. If he's also charismatic enough to get his position, he's a smart guy, he's educated. How are you smart and relatively charming, and you still got to be like this? You never have to be like this, but you definitely don't have to be like this.
No, you're getting off on another level, subconscious maybe, but it's definitely
that's
something.
The thing that gets to me is it's it's so hard to see, because I really want to empathize from everyone's position as much as I can, but I just have these blind spots when it comes to trying to put myself in the heads of these kinds of offenders.
Mm-hmm. It's power and money. People react very similarly. You wonder, why are rich people obsessed with hoarding more money?
Mm-hmm.
You think, if I were rich, I wouldn't do that. I'd spread the love. Well, no, you get into a mindset when you get into that position. And I think the same thing happens with power.
Now,
where you're expected to be able to walk the earth a certain way. And it's your God-given right, or not God-given right, to be able to take advantage of people.
And one thing here with Silverman is he would have gotten fired even if it hadn't been for those two cases being reported to the board that he'd forced himself on women.
Just based on the conflict of interest thing?
Yeah. That was serious enough for him to lose his job.
In the article, and you may have mentioned this, but she came forward with the accusations after the first thing, because she thought, well, since he's already under investigation, let's just let them know what else is going on, which I honestly think is a really good way of looking at it. I'm never going to tell a woman how she's supposed to handle her story. You're not responsible as a lady if something else bad happens because you didn't say anything, because it's not your job to police the world. You have to take care of yourself. And if somebody hurts you or injures you in any way, please focus on yourself first. But when someone is capable of coming forward and does have the ability and decides to do so, it is good that we are starting to listen to these stories more, because I would really hate getting off of something like this conflict of interest. He could get a similar position somewhere else.
Yeah.
But once this story comes out, and I'm really hoping that it kills his career, because there are enough people out there who would be good for us who aren't going to come with this kind of baggage.
Yep. Well, and the other thing worth noting is that in both cases, the women who made these accusations said that the reason they didn't come forward sooner was they've seen the way women get treated in the atheist community.
We get knocks on that for a long time. Deservedly, by the way.
Yeah,
totally deservedly.
Will get knocks on that for a long time.
Yeah, that's fine. They got to change if they want to be treated differently. And that's just groups in general are bad to women. And atheists, a lot of us stem from academia, which is also inherently sexist. And it's just, we're at a point now where there's enough non-super nerds in the group that it's more noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
But even here locally, the Meet an Atheist events, I have personally am aware of women who have tried to come to events in our own community here locally and have not been comfortable with enough of the male attention
Yeah, unless you are actively seeking a partner, it could feel incredibly predatory.
Yeah. And that's not the kind of atmosphere that we want. And it's because there's a lot of guys out there that are involved in the scene like Gary that I definitely don't ever expect to get that vibe from, because you talk to him and he's just not like that. And most of my friends are women, but they don't usually come to these events simply because they don't want to. And I don't know. I mean, as our community grows and normalizes, I fully expect there to be more women-driven events, which will be just created at the base more natural. Mm-hmm. Like when I did the Portland Queer Comedy Festival, he says every time on every episode. One of the things I feel that made it better for queers of all shapes and sizes and colors is that's who made the event.
Yeah.
So in the future, I feel that this is another reason why I like giving more opportunities to people, women of color, marginalized voices, is because they, from their perspective, are more prepared to create a space that is safer for marginalized people.
If American Atheists could get a woman of color as president, it would be so amazingly awesome.
And I'm friends with people that fit, within that. I mean, not that they're in for those positions.
They exist and they want that.
Yeah. Like,
it's whether or not they can get it.
I feel, and they feel they will in the future. It's just, and this is near sci-fi, not far sci-fi like we usually talk about. But the idea of having it being more normalized, robot sex, normalizing the idea of it should be normal for the next leader to be a woman if, just because there's going to be enough
qualified.
Right, because there will be a lot of qualified. There are a lot of qualified now. I definitely don't have the line on who those people are.
No.
But I know they exist.
The vice president of American Atheists.
You do, though. So maybe. Yeah, but I'm glad that we're making these steps because...
Who is...
I'm looking up her name.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I wouldn't even...
I thought you said that because you just found it.
So no. I'm looking for the email she sent me.
So close.
She was the one that scheduled the interview with... Most recent interview with David Silverman.
Okay. We need to get her on now.
Currently, I don't think she would...
Well, not now. Okay. She couldn't do it now.
They're directing all media inquiries to a specific person, and we count as media.
Where's our press badge? Get me into stuff for free.
Kim is her name.
We'll just go with Kim.
She's the vice president. I've heard her on a podcast. She's retired military.
Cool.
Yeah, she would very easily be able to slide right into that role, and right now is basically filling that job.
Yeah, I feel bad for her, though. That's not how you want to get a job.
No.
Whatever. Men make these kinds of mistakes, and now they're just getting burned for it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not mistakes is even wrong. Look how that's bred into our language. Men make these decisions, and now they're having consequences. So I don't think there's anything wrong with just giving. I think every time a man fucks up like this, we should just give the job to the next qualified woman. Like, men shouldn't, not that this is not an anti-man statement, but I think this is how we redress balance in the system, is every time a CEO or some man gets fired, you don't hire another man. You go, well,
that didn't work out.
A woman doing it next. I mean, like, yeah, because it's not like dudes. It's not like there's just not jobs out there for us. Yeah. You can still have the other 98 jobs. But I think by just bare necessity, that would fix this solution eventually. Because at some point, it's like, well, men can't have this job, this job, this job, and this job. Because every time we gave it to a guy, he fucked it up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we wouldn't have presidents, couldn't be men anymore. Vice president might still be okay. Yeah, that's it. That's my new solution.
Right.
It's really hard to mess up being a vice president unless you're Pence.
Or you spelled potato wrong.
Are you? Yeah.
Pence
that really throws you back.
Pence is what
How
we
many
elected.
people got that reference? Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, I know, right?
I think Tiny Toons made a joke about that once.
It's an old. We used to have standards.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the Trump administration.
Why not? We started.
Yes.
Oh, and there we go.
So, a federal judge on Friday has barred Trump's latest transgender military ban.
Whoop, whoop. I knew it was coming, but it still made me really sad when he announced that a couple weeks ago.
And this one actually takes it a step further.
Yeah.
The ruling states that trans people have been historically discriminated against because they're trans.
Yes.
And that because of that, they are a protected class.
True.
Adoy.
They have never been counted as a protected class yet.
I know.
So this is new.
We know all about that here in Idaho.
This will need to move on to eventually the Supreme Court for that protected class to really stick, or at least to a circuit court. But that has started. And so it's a combination of, because there was already a court injunction against that, against the ban, and because trans people are a protected class who get a lot of discrimination.
And they do.
Whatever is going to happen needs very careful court review.
Well, that makes that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't want to rush it and then screw it up for future.
Yeah. So specifically, the order is for the military to not enact this ban. This is a district judge from the Western District of Washington, Martha Petchman. But this will continue as how many, with the various forms of this ban, they have all gotten injunctions. There are courts across the country who have issued injunctions against this. It will eventually get to the Supreme Court, but that takes time. And until then, nothing is going to happen with it.
Yeah, courts move slow, which pros and cons. This is one of those times when it's okay because they're trying to reel it back.
Yeah.
They got Superman. The right always gets mad, especially the religious right. Recently saw a thing online where someone demanded to be told for a non-religious reason against gay marriage or against safe access to abortions, like a non-religious reason. And the fact is, really isn't one.
Yeah.
It's super hard to find unless they generate facts. This is why a lot of the groups, John Oliver did this in a recent special about abortions and access to abortions, that a lot of these groups it's legal for them to lie to women about what the effects of abortions are, or even how safe condoms are.
Well, our legislature just passed a law allowing people to legally
requiring people to misinform women.
And my understanding at this point is the reason they are like this is it really is a greater good argument for them. Mm-hmm. The ends justify the means. It's okay to lie to save babies, and they see at every point after conception they consider it a human child. So it's difficult to have a conversation with them that doesn't devolve because they actually see piles of babies. Personally,
that's a hard,
personally, I actually have more respect for people who are at least consistent in that behavior.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if you ask me, okay, if there's a group of people are murdering babies, yeah, maybe lie to them to slow it down. That's fine. Baby murder, right? The problem is I'm on the side of the people who don't. You can even argue away a woman's right to choose if you believe it's a baby. Now that I know that we're there, how do we have a conversation? Mm-hmm. Like how
to determine that is a human being. The way the religious pick that is the moment of ensoulment.
Yeah, it's just words you made up, right?
Ensoulment used to be something that happened at birth when you took your first breath. You breathed in your soul. Now,
sure, that sounds logical.
That's as legit as any other way.
That is the.
Well, I mean, if some souls are made up, so yeah, why not? Why can't they just teleport directly in from space?
Now, what's funny is that was
Jesus doesn't have a transporter.
That was the most biblical way of looking at it, because in the Bible, the only reference to soul is breath, because the word we have for soul comes from the word for breath.
Well, it's the breath of life. Also, before most science was invented, medical science, if they're breathing, okay, it's alive.
Yep.
Like, they probably also didn't see trees as having the same kind of life as we did.
Yeah. So, until that changed very recently, in the last, since Roe versus Wade, that view has changed to where ensoulment happens as soon as an egg gets fertilized.
So, weeks later sometimes? That's weird.
So, as soon as there is a soul
present, if you can trace it back to the moment you had sex.
I don't.
Well, they aren't going to the point of the sperm getting ensouled.
Oh, good. Okay.
Unless they want to go the every sperm
the DNA,
sacred.
But we're not the most important part by a far shot. It just the underlying theme always comes back to the soul issue, which is something that you can't either. It always goes back to faith and something you can't have a logical argument about. When they're like, well, that's the soul shows up. All right. Well, how do you know that? Like, how would you know that? Like, we can't even, something we can't see nor measure nor define accurately in any way, shape, or form. Something inside of us, but
yeah. And this is why I've been really tolerant of most abortion talks, is that first you have to see what if your vocabulary is equal. If you see life as beginning at a certain point, there's no point in arguing if that differs, because you're talking to a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I hope they are crushed in the legal system and that
Absolutely.
they never rise from the grave.
Oh my God.
Like, it literally is like the monkey trial at this point. It's like, just put it down. Medical science is what the medical scientists say it should be. We shouldn't have, write a brief and have that submitted to the court on why you think abortion is wrong. But we have real definable rights of human beings involved without getting involved on the humanity of what a woman is building inside of her with her own body. Like, if we looked at it objectively outside of the species framework, it's a bio machine making a smaller bio machine inside of it, utilizing energy and products that it gains. It's building a new one, and we are deciding at the product, at what point does that count as a new product? Well, traditionally, when it came into its own. But now we're saying that it owns itself before it's built. And it's really weird, because that's as far away as I can get from it and keep it, pure, is looking at it outside that. It's just a machine making another machine. And at some point, we determine when it's its own machine. And I feel, in looking at it from that perspective, the machine building that machine kind of owns that machine and is that machine because it's made of itself, literally made of itself, until that machine decides to release that machine into the world. So to me, until birth itself, there's no body autonomy for the child. Now, obviously, I think there's an argument for viable babies that's easy to grant. If a child can survive on its own, well, I mean,
when it's a choice between an abortion and inducing labor, yeah.
Yeah, but like, if it's a first trimester, if it's 3 weeks in, if she just found out, if the machine has a birth defect that is being built inside, or if the woman has any reason she wants, because it's none of my goddamn business, I think she should be allowed to do that. Because as of now, we as machines cannot self-terminate that process. So especially, this is why we've made inroads on the rape and incest thing, because we have enough of a moral outrage against those two things already within us that we can argue, okay, even the dead baby people are like, most of the time, I guess. But you will watch them make arguments for why even a baby that's the product of rape should be allowed to be born.
Right, because God wanted it that way.
No matter the cost. They do not calculate what happens to the child mother, or, I mean, horror stories. Like, they will and have in court tried to force pubescent? Why is that word escaping me?
Yeah.
Pubescent children, 13-year-olds, to carry children to terms. Which, imagine making that decision for a 13-year-old.
Yeah. Okay, so since we've already moved on to abortion, we do have a news story about abortion.
Solid. That was convenient.
The Arizona State House has passed a bill that would require women who want an abortion to fill out a questionnaire. And this questionnaire will ask why. So options will include, they're going to find out, is the abortion elective for economic reasons? Is the pregnancy from rape or incest?
How many times they've had abortions?
That one's not, at least not in this article, spelled out. That was in Idaho's. It's going to include whether or not the woman
Idaho is great.
Doesn't want children at this time, if the abortion's due to fetal or maternal health, or if the patient is getting an abortion because of relationship issues like domestic abuse or an affair.
So what we're scared of here is the information being used wrong. Because I don't think anyone is ethically against gathering data. Their names are not connected. So they're not going to ask your name.
No, and from a government health and wellness kind of standpoint, this is very valuable information.
Right. I think the problem we have now is that everyone's got all these Orwellian fears because they keep selling everyone's information. Like, you need to be aware that that's the thing that happens. But whereas not everyone is like me and just throws themselves into the stream of, well, I guess the robots already know everything about me. To this, but I understand as how we treat patients now. We consider this a medical procedure, and I agree with that. And going into this medical procedure, it is unnecessarily stressful to add this extra pressure. and they feel like it's a tactic being used by opponents to limit the numbers of women who go through with it.
If you make it more of a hassle, more women will just not bother going through with it, even if it's what they want.
Right.
And just like with the Idaho bill, I see this as being even more sinister than that. It's
insidious.
To gather data to use for further restrictions on abortion.
It could be. I mean, data itself is neither good nor evil, but thinking that makes it so.
And statistically.
I'll work Shakespeare into that.
With abortion, it's especially important because one of the key parts in the ruling in Roe versus Wade was the patient's right to privacy.
I'm not ethically against the gathering of information, but I don't trust anybody, and I don't think there's any benefit to any patient alive of having this. I just don't see, like, I know the data exists and it would be beneficial, but I would never want to make it a mandatory thing. I just feel it's too cold and heartless. And we also don't do it for other medical procedures yet.
Nope.
No one ever asks, well, why are we replacing your kidneys? Well, yeah.
You have a doctor's order. That's all you need.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just weird. We already go out of our way to make things as uncomfortable and as awkward for women who go through with this as we can. I don't know why we do it. We already know that women will get abortions even if they're illegal, even if it kills them. So why are we? How far are you willing to push this? If killing women and doing it illegally won't stop them, what are you going to do legally that makes it more uncomfortable than that? There's always going to be women doing it. All we're doing it is just safely.
Yeah. And so with the data gathering, one of the things I see as an issue with it is gathering data can be good for creating research and statistics and all of that.
And if we were a science-driven society, that would be fantastic.
However, if you are going to start gathering data for research, it needs to go through an institutional review board to make sure that you are doing it ethically, for good reason, and you're only gathering the data you need to do the research you're doing.
Yeah, and I would have it done afterwards on a volunteer-only basis after she's convalesced, because those facts won't change, and after she's not in a stressful position worried about her future. Like, there's no timeline on when you get the data. Like, just, hey, here's a link to a thing if you ever want to fill out a simple survey.
You could go
so
back.
That we can help
go back 50 years and ask people their history if they want to volunteer it.
That would be the ethical way.
If we were science driven, if we were into this for the patient.
That's
and
not what
all
this
is
about.
for is discouraging people to get abortions by trying to make them embarrassed to get the procedure.
So what it feels like is we're just setting up more hurdles to just, because they're going to do everything they can.
Which is why I hate when people say, but it's just a questionnaire. It's like, yeah, but it shouldn't. Every one you add is just another hurdle. And everyone you say that is okay because it is a minor thing to do, you're just adding more hurdles. And eventually there's going to be enough there that people aren't going to do it at all. They will do it. They will just do it illegally and bypass all your hurdles.
A good example is the legalization of marijuana. States that have done it in the way that is the least cumbersome have seen the black market greatly weakened.
Yeah.
States that have done it in ways where they keep a whole bunch of hurdles up and keep the prices up and all that, it's easier to just call your dealer. And the black market survives. A
lot of the people, especially people who use it as a form of self-medication or anything like that, for several different pain or disorders, you're not going to want to go through all those extra steps when you don't have to. When I could just go to the places I already go and talk to people I already know. And since every state but like one around us already has it, it's not difficult in Idaho to find a supply.
Yeah.
It's Idaho and Utah are going to hold out until the feds force us to change. But that's just what we do. We're super conservative here. And, I don't know. I'm still optimistic socially on there being a backswing from this far right bullshit we're doing right now.
I've been waiting for it for 20 years.
The pendulum swings back and forth. The danger I feel now is ecologically and economically, we are approaching big red danger zones. And
yeah, that bubble's gotta pop.
It will. But the thing that makes me apprehensive about the future is if the pendulum swing is a generational one or a cultural one, if we even as a species have the time before we're set back hundreds or thousands of years technologically. And I'm not saying that our species will get wiped out by climate change, but it is not going to be the same society we have now.
Yeah.
And what that speaks to me, because we are on a track now where our species has access, if possible, to the galaxy. We could step into the galaxy from where we're at here if we make the right calls, or not. And if we have to start over and go back to 1,000 years ago, well, maybe an asteroid wipes us out before we get to space, because that is a thing that is going to happen on our planet sometime in the future. And the only thing that stops us from being wiped out is Jupiter, random luck, and space lasers that we haven't invented yet. And we can only control one of those things. And it's scary to me, species-wise, that we would push ourselves back.
Well, the political pendulum is on like a 50-year... It swings one direction for 50 years, and then it swings the other for 50. That's what we've seen.
This is the information age now.
That
we
could
just haven't
change.
been around long enough. We just don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much going on, and that's, again, the problem with history. There's no control group.
Yeah.
We don't get to look at the other universe and see, like, would we be bombing Syria right now if Hillary was in charge? Maybe. Would she be doing it for the same reasons? No. Like, but even then, how do you know? Like, I personally am against all these war hawks because I personally ascribe to the one world, one village rule, where having borders itself is silly ridiculous when we should be focusing on trying to bring the entire group of us out of the muck together. But that's not a thing our species is into yet.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next story. The ACLU of Missouri is suing on behalf of a woman we talked about, I think a couple months ago, who in February went to speak at the Wentzville Board of Aldermen meeting in Missouri, and she talked to the board about the In God We Trust sign that they'd recently put up, and the members of that community who had spoken to her about it but were afraid to speak to them about it. And the mayor cut her time short, told her to sit down, was still then at that point offended by her mere presence at the meeting, and had the police remove her.
Yeah, that's democratic.
At the point that somebody has shut up and sat down, you have no grounds to remove that person for being disruptive.
I have personally made the mayor use his gavel on more than one occasion at these public meetings. I have never been escorted. I am always an animated speaker. He hated that I was getting applause breaks. He hated that I ran my time. I wrapped up anyway. I was talking about homeless people and not atheism, and I was left alone. So it's weird. Now, granted, I personally believe our city council makes most of its mind up before these public meetings, but I still think it's part of the process that we're allowed to have, even though some of them don't pay attention and don't listen.
It's pretty much a cornerstone of American politics.
Yeah, but it's important. It's the only chance, and I'm glad we still do it. We have a pretty lefty government here, but they are not left enough for me, and it is difficult sometimes. Still, have never had this conversation where I ran the time or I was assertive in talking about things. I've never been arrested. You can actually see what she said. You can find out that she sat down. They said she ran her time, but she sat down like 25 seconds early. And like a 5-minute time window. That's a big chunk of time.
Oh, yeah.
That she just didn't get. And it turns out the pro person who was making the opposite argument, who talked after her, went over their time with no consequences whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it was blatant discrimination and harassment, and yeah.
So this is just another example of atheist discrimination when we make a perfectly valid point of why are we worshiping your deity? Why again? When they're like, well, how dare you offend me with your questioning of my? Yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult to deal with that.
Yeah. Now, my prediction is this lawsuit's going to be thrown out for lack of standing because she doesn't live in that town.
Which isn't that's not illegal, though.
Shouldn't
and if
be.
She is a representative, this is the thing that I also struggle with marginalized voices. There are people like me who will loudly and proudly proclaim what I am, queer, atheist, whatever, in public settings. But I will not and cannot expect all of you to do that. That's ridiculous. I disown my family already. Almost everyone in my life is younger and as progressive as I am, or is definitely open to who I am as a person. But if you don't live that life, if you can get fired, if your business would suffer, if say you're one of the two concrete businesses in this town, you don't get to be an atheist because you could go out of business. They have one other choice, and it's a Christian. So if that guy comes to me and he goes, hey, I agree with you on this, and here's my thoughts on it, I will incorporate that into my activism. That does not invalidate his voice, because in her community, she's the representative. And as the representative of the members in that city's or town's community, she should be allowed to be given a voice.
Yeah.
Yep. She was
Lack of standing should not qualify there.
Right. Marginalized voices should not be disenfranchised because they don't have a local representative.
The entire lack of standing argument is basically invented to be able to discriminate and persecute people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Hold on. I'm going to quote myself on that on Twitter. I thought that was really well done. Sometimes I'm like, oh, shit, I said that out loud?
Okay, and while you do that, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
Atheist Nomads is proudly brought to you by listeners just like you. You can find out how you can become a patron at patreon.com/atheistnomads. That's patreon.com/atheistnomads. Trinidad and Tobago have now started on the path to decriminalizing homosexuality.
Finally.
Yes.
Not same-sex marriage, but just
baby steps.
having
Just making
gay
it
sex.
legal.
Yeah. So a court has now ruled, and this is actually a high court judge that has ruled that the colonial law banning gay sex is unconstitutional.
Yay!
This
Fair
was
enough. Also, and I read this article. This is the only part of the article when it talks about where the law came from. It just goes, a colonial wall. So translation, for those of you who don't understand, white people.
Yes.
It's a white man's rule.
White man's rule from a long time ago.
This didn't exist for these people.
Specifically, this would be related to the British Victorian era ban on gay sex,
Which everybody knows that was the worst era.
that got Alan Turing.
Turing. Yeah.
Turing. Yeah, Alan Turing.
No, I know what you meant.
Yeah. Got him killed.
Oscar Wilde. Yeah, that's
So
sad.
this is now, finally is starting. This isn't a final ruling. That won't be coming until July.
Mm-hmm.
But she has determined that it is, unconstitutional for buggery to be a crime.
Buggery is butt fucking, you guys.
Yep. With up to 25 years in prison.
Well, it's a big crime to give somebody pleasure through the back door.
Section 13. Section 16 also makes oral sex illegal.
God, now see, that's a crime.
that's just sad.
Man, what is wrong with people?
Yeah. Theoretically, with how much this is, it's an act of serious indecency to have something other than sexual intercourse involving the use of the genital organ for the purpose of arousing or gratifying sexual desire.
Yeah, man, I belong in jail.
Wait. So dildos are totally legal.
Not in this
No.
phrasing.
Nope.
Oh, because
Masturbation could get you 5 years in prison
because you're dealing with genitals.
for the purpose of arousal and gratifying sexual desire. It doesn't specify that it needs to be partnered,
That's messed up.
which technically in Idaho, it is illegal to engage in oral sex. I think oral
Yeah,
or
well.
anal.
Well, no, I think that law became illegal in the Ninth Circuit Court. But yeah, for a long time.
Actually, it was whatever circuit Texas is in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, this is in July. They'll be doing the final ruling on it, and this should very soon make it so that it is legal to be gay in Trinidad and Tobago.
I also want you to know that opponents in this article called gay marriage a cancer.
Yeah, because they've
This
obviously
is,
suffered through cancer.
Well,
Yeah.
part of the problem is always that this one. Okay, it's weird how like I'm empathetic with the dead baby argument, but with this one, it's like, but you don't even have dead babies. Like they act the same, very similar. Like it's going to end all society. It's going to cause all these wrongs. But the problem with us living in the information age is that they're new generations of human beings, and the ones on the planet already can just Google that shit.
Yeah.
And you know what happens when gays get married? More people live in loving and supportive relationships.
Mhm.
Oh, shit. It turns out good for society.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh
no.
The crazy
That's
thing is
the worst thing for these people.
one of the big concerns is that if men can marry other men, then why would men marry women and make babies?
It's so gross that that's how they feel. That's all that women have to offer.
Yep, totally.
You're just a cock sleeve that makes babies, so shut her down.
Now,
It's so gross.
what's really funny with that one is when you look at it,
Mm-hmm.
the more loving, committing same-sex relationships that are out there, where the nature of the relationship does not inherently include procreation, the more adoption happens.
So basically every relationship I've ever been in.
Yeah, don't get me started on how terrible adoption is in this country.
Oh, well, yeah, and we struggle a lot with having accessibility. People make arguments against atheists having babies to adopt and queers of all kinds. I mean, we wouldn't want two fully functional and responsible lesbians to raise a new person.
Yeah.
When we could just give them to another horrible straight family.
Or not give them to anybody at all and make them just live in the system for 18 years.
That's helping. We're making well-adjusted people that way.
Either that or pay $30,000.
That's how much it costs to adopt a white infant on average.
I think it's down to $20,000 if you're adopting a black infant.
Yeah.
You can fly to Vietnam, pay all of the legal fees there and in the U.S., and adopt a baby for about $5,000 or $10,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is absurd. Now, of course, with adoption, the cheapest way is to adopt something that is not a baby and adopt a kid out of the foster system.
Especially if you're related in some way.
Yeah, but that is not particularly common. And it seems that from the stories that we see about it, ends up getting abused a lot.
Yeah.
By really creepy Christian pedophile assholes.
Creepy motorhome compound kind of. That's a nightmare scenario.
Yeah. All right. Moving along. Missouri Governor Eric Greitens has, we've talked about before because, well, he was getting in trouble for
general douchebaggery.
Taking naked pictures of a woman who was blindfolded and tied to a chair for a consensual sexual act, as far as we knew.
Yeah, they're consensual acts where that happens.
But as far as we knew, everything was consensual, and he was trying to make sure that she and her now ex-husband, who presumably divorced her over her having an affair with Greitens, after they brought it to public attention, he ended up getting, because of all of the illegal stuff he was doing to try to keep that quiet, including the blackmail about if she goes public, he'll release the picture. In it being illegal, he got arrested. He has felony charges against him. And it has now come out that, no, actually what was going on when that woman was tied up to that chair, the picture wasn't the only thing that wasn't consensual.
Yeah, and from a chronological point of view, this man did some horrible things to this woman and then manipulated her emotionally and physically. And they did have something of a relationship after the incident itself. When questioned about it, the woman said she didn't want him to think that she was just a whore. So she was obviously in a very hard and difficult place. And when we talk about this stuff, we frequently want it to be binary, very simple and black and white, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and like an earlier discussion today, and the more in the scenario, the more violence or anything is in subtext, the more careful you have to be to not be hurting people. And this is just another case of a man taking advantage, using power again, and really hurting somebody.
Mm-hmm. She was his hairdresser before it all started.
Something I noticed when I worked in the prison is the attitude that some of these manipulators have. And a lot of them end up in prison for some reason. But the attitude a lot of them have is they're sociopathic isn't maybe the right term, but they do play it. They gamify it a lot. That's why they call it a game. Like their attitude isn't to be genuine. It's about finding leverage and winning and conquering and just, I don't know if I have the best language for it.
There are a few points on the sociopath scale.
Right. Like it's a spectrum like everything else. Nothing's binary, really. So this guy's behavior is just gross. Like he very quickly put her into a subservient position and a position of reveal, took pictures on his phone, and then immediately said he would use those to blackmail her.
Yep.
immediately. And that's something that you actually see as a trope in dirty comics on the internet. It's actually a thing that happens in those. And look, just because I watch a lot of porn and know this doesn't mean that he doesn't do it. Like, it is such a manipulative trick to, like, put someone in that position, then take photos, and then immediately threaten to use it against that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is an act of violence. It is so... And everything this guy did and everything that he said was to further this scenario. And he just...
Presumably, he took something that started out as a consensual sexual relationship and destroyed all of that and took it to the point where she was no longer consenting. And he was being violent and abusive and manipulative and, yeah, a complete asshole.
Yeah.
The Missouri House Committee that has been investigating this has concluded that she is credible and that everything she's saying is probably true and more likely to be true than what the governor is saying.
So weird.
And that committee is made up of 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats. So this is a case where once you cross a certain line...
Party royalty, loyalty is hands off.
Yep.
Well, you would like to think that would be more often than it is.
It's
though.
like, okay, well, let's just base this off of what the truth is or what we think the truth is, not what party line you're on. But
it's gross how often that has to come up in articles now. Like, oh, also, because frequently these things are split down party lines.
Yep.
When it's like, you shouldn't. The one that was making the rounds on the internet the other day was, I want to say Mississippi or a state similar to that had a ruling about whether it was legal to have sex with animals. And 10 conservative Republicans voted against making it illegal to have sex with animals. And the funny part is there were 10 people who publicly made it so that they could, who publicly stated that they didn't want to make that a rule.
Wow.
And it's just weird that you could do that.
That's more government regulation.
Yeah. Now, are you sure that was Mississippi? Because that's very heavy on...
No, all those states are horrible from my understanding. I don't visit them very often.
If it was Republicans voting along state lines and there weren't very many of them, that sounds more like Washington.
No, just everyone that voted was.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Washington had a lacking in their animal welfare laws.
But so do we.
I think they've corrected it.
Yeah. It takes a long time for you to like.
But yeah, it's man. Billy Graham's daughter.
Isn't she a peach, though?
Anne Graham Lotz.
Bless her heart.
Has gone on the Graham family's, or did an interview with the Graham family's magazine, Decision, where she was talking about how judgment is coming.
Well, sure. They've been saying that for a while. Why not?
Quote, and I'm talking about something like a nuclear strike, an earthquake that splits us in two, an EMP, electromagnetic pulse attack, that devastates our electrical grid, something major that would be a game changer for America because we are so defiant and rebellious and idolatrous and immoral, and we know better.
Well, it sounds like she really was trying to play. She's definitely playing craps, and she's putting her bets on a lot of things.
Yeah.
These people, all they do is they see stuff that might happen, and then they say, well, one of 20 things might happen, and then when one maybe kind of happens, I was right this whole time.
Yeah, after that, if New York City had a power outage...
I called it.
Yep.
And then they're just always like that. They've always...
Well, is there anybody in the room who has a relative with a name that starts with R?
Yeah, it's cold reading, but with basically.
A magnitude 8 earthquake in Alaska, she would probably count as a win.
Yeah, even though that's on a major fault line.
Yeah. A North Korea nuking Seoul, she would probably count as, that was...
Well, I don't know how anyone can count that as a win. Yeah. Yeah, that's just how these people are, and this is why you don't get high in your own supply.
These are people who want judgment to happen.
And that's part of the scary thing.
Sick, messed up.
What's really even more crazy with this is she is claiming that a meeting between the presidents of Russia, Iran, and Turkey talking about how to end the conflict in Syria fits into biblical prophecy. Specifically, Ezekiel 38, which talks about an alliance between Gog, Meshech, and Tubal, Persia, Cush, and Put. Libya, Ethiopia, and whatever Gog and Meshech weren't involved.
So they're scraping the bottom of the barrel just as they always do.
Persia, Tubal would be Anatolia, Turkey. Persia is Iran. Where's Russia in that?
They always just have to pull this stuff out of their ass.
It's cute.
Yeah.
But how else do they defend their position? Their only source for authority is the Bible, so they just have to just find a verse that's kind of in that area
somehow.
Yeah, it's really difficult to talk to them about it.
Especially since they keep trying to prophesize things and those things don't happen, and then they have to make it up again a couple months later.
Well, actually, it's the things always happen. She talked about Matthew 24:7, which talks about when nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything.
There will be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in various places.
That's called every day.
That's life.
Right,
Yep.
100% that's life.
And we've actually reached as much violence as we see around the world. This is the safest time ever to be a human.
It really is, though.
You are less likely to die from famine, pestilence, earthquake, or war now than ever before in human history.
Whoop, whoop. Yeah, see, there's hope for us.
Right?
I look at the baby, I'm like, right? Please?
Maybe.
Yeah, there is.
Some of us.
And for a good example, Ken Ham is trying to staff...
Hold on. Let me... Ken Ham in the news again. Okay, I'm ready. I'm good.
He's trying to staff the Creation Museum and Ark Encounter because they need to have... They do a lot of seasonal employees. They also do some full-time. They're having a really hard time filling them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because the application requires you to... And this even includes jobs for plumber, electrician,
Everything.
housekeeper,
Janitor.
anything. You have to talk about your salvation testimony, which means you've been saved by Jesus. Your creation belief statement, which better say that evolution is a lie and the earth is only a few thousand years old, and confirmation of your agreement with the AIG statement of faith, which includes in it that the only legitimate marriage is between opposite-sex couples, and it implies that transgender people don't exist.
They don't believe that they do.
Yeah. So they're having a hard time filling the positions. So Ken Ham has decided to kind of lighten up on those requirements a little bit to just saying that you agree to the answer in Genesis statement of faith.
He is so close to this thing just getting shut down that he is just...
Well, he can't find people to work for him because you're working a seasonal part-time job and your boss is like, hey, before you get a job here, I need you to say that the Bible is 100% true without any inaccuracies and that gay people deserve to die. Sign up here, please.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, only 3 people are going to sign that, dude.
Yeah.
And he's so far removed from normal behavior.
He really is.
That he thinks that's normal.
Yeah.
He just, and nobody wants a piece of that. Even now, how hard up do you have to be for a job? I would work there, ironically. And I would do customer service and I would be nice to everyone because I also feel a lot of people who go there, ironically.
Yes.
This is a testament to our current state of affairs that this place could be built by tax money and that people would pay to not. And by the way, nobody's going to this either.
Oh, yeah.
It's
No, that's what I mean.
Every level, yeah.
It's the employment problem is the least of his problems.
But the simple fact is, thanks to the internet and just the modern world we're in, there are not enough college students who can agree to that entire statement of faith.
No. See, we're trying to shut up the baby by using a pacifier, and she is just not having it. She's like, nope, I'm just going to keep on talking.
All right, time for another break. We love hearing from our listeners. You can email us at contact@atheistnomads.com, tweet us at atheistnomads, send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/atheistnomads, or better yet, call us and leave us a message at 541-203-0666. We might even play it on the show. You can also help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcast directory of choice. So, I'm sure by now everybody's heard about the story of the boy that came back from heaven. This was a child who had survived a car accident, went to heaven, met God, Jesus, the devil.
The whole mess,
and then came back. And He's now an adult, 19 years old, and he has sued Tyndale Publishing House because they have made $1 million on the story that his father, who has now passed away, completely made up.
Shocking.
Yeah. This kid was left a quadriplegic from the car accident.
Right. I remember about this.
So the closest, there was no miracle there. He happened to survive in a hospital because of dedicated medical care and came out of a coma after months.
Wow.
And he has been a quadriplegic ever since. He's living with his mother, barely surviving on disability checks because his mom is also disabled. And Tyndale has made millions and millions and millions of dollars from this book about him, and they haven't paid a dime.
Scavengers.
He had asked them a few years back, while he was still a kid, to pull the book because it's all lies. He's not sure if they have, and they won't give him any money unless he signs an agreement that says that their agreement with his father is valid.
So he's going to have to go to court then.
He's never seen the agreement that they had with his father.
Right. Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter. His father's dead and he's not.
Right. But he is the heir. So any money that should be going to his father should now be going to him. And it's this kid's story. So if anything, he deserves at least something.
It seems like if he got a lawyer and they went far enough that they would pay the guy off, just because there's no way for them to come out of this looking good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But Christian publishers, but I really don't know if they're going to want to let go of this kind of story because they need modern reaffirmation that what they're selling is real. And there's no way they're going to get that if every time somebody comes out, they go, wait, I'm going to retract everything I said.
Yeah. And he does have lawyers, but he is actually listed as an author. The authors are his father and him.
The car accident was his dad's fault in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he says the publishers never confirmed with him whether any of the events were true because they don't care. They heard a story that said a kid says he went to heaven. They're going to be like, yeah, we're going to print that. Yep.
And the dad made all of it up to, heck, I don't necessarily fault the dad on that completely.
Well, he did lie.
He lied, but he took advantage of gullible people to help his family survive with horrendous medical bills.
I know, it's sad. Well, this just goes to show how predatory these publishing companies can be for children's accounts.
Right.
According to a numerologist, David Mead, who spoke with the UK's Daily Express newspaper, the sun and moon will be in Virgo, as will Jupiter, which represents the Messiah, on April 23.
It doesn't mean anything.
So this ties in with Revelation 12, 1-2, which reads, "And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains in the agony of giving birth."
Yeah, those two things have nothing to do with each other.
This alignment also represents the lion of the tribe of Judah and planet X, or Nibiru, will appear in the sky on that date, causing volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and earthquakes.
It sounds like something out of Night Vale.
Yeah. So he's claiming this is all good math, and the math and the prophecy all works together because it does.
One of the benefits of doing something like numerology is there's no one to test your theories, because you just make stuff up like, oh, all these things will be in Virgo. The stars and, technically, the entire universe is shifting around in shape and form continually as we travel through it. Yeah. Or, more accurately, as we all fall in space towards the center of gravity of the universe, modified by dark energy, of course. But all of these things means that nothing is where the astrologists say they are in the first place, since the planets and stars and galaxies have all been moving. Well, they've always been moving. So even when they say stuff like it's in Virgo, not really. Everything moved. Like, we're already in a position where in order, like when archaeologists look at how things are set up for astronomy for old buildings, they have to modify where those stars used to be when that civilization existed, even if only you go back a few thousand years.
Yeah.
So looking at things like the pyramids don't align like they used to because the planets and all those stars all kept moving. So first off, right off the bat, it's not even in Virgo anymore.
Okay, the sun and the moon being in Virgo, even if it's within that constellation, they're still closer to us and the dominant gravitational forces on us and our planet. Virgo is a collection of stars that aren't even close to each other.
Yeah, it's an ethnocentric way of looking at everything. The idea that you specifically are so important, or your people or your country or your planet, that the universe itself has meaning for you is so arrogant.
Now, what's even funnier is this guy says this is going to be mark the rapture. He picked a day so close that it's going to be hard to make much money off of that. So that's just poor form if you're going to be a charlatan.
Well, his motivation is clearly the charlatanism
and
itself.
What's also hilarious is we talked about this same exact numerological, astrological, biblical prophecy conspiracy that was supposed to happen during the eclipse last summer.
Well, that's the problem with woo, is it's not real. And you can't... even the idea that a planet forming above ours suddenly without warning, if it was out there... Yeah, the idea that some dude would just randomly notice this major cosmological event right before it happened is just ridiculous. It's not even remotely true.
Yeah.
But people do like drama. And what's more dramatic than the ending of all life as we know it?
Well, and I think we're going to continue to see more stuff like this because...
people are fools.
Well, that, and also scientists are saying there is another planet, possibly two. And so these people who have thought Nibiru was out there are now convinced it is.
Well, those people are easily convinced. It's like that Facebook host or that Facebook hoax that was going around every once in a while where if you put this thing on your Facebook status, then they can't sell your information.
Yeah.
Clearly that wasn't real either.
Yeah. Okay, so this has been the single biggest source of conversation on the Facebook page.
It's sad.
This
really.
Next story.
No, it's awesome.
All these important subjects now wrapped up in condiments.
People can't get into it. It's too serious.
So,
oh my God.
On April 12, Heinz launched a campaign for their new product, Mayo Chup.
Rolling my eyes at the name.
They tested this too.
Yep. You know that they had the people say, of these names, which one did you use? People like, Mayo Chup.
I'm going to guess they tested in specific markets where this, unbeknownst to them, was not already a thing. Because depending on what region or ethnic background you're from, it's Mayo Chup. Actually, no, but to nobody is it Mayo Chup.
No, nobody's known
Mayo
it as
ketchup. There's fry sauce. There's mayonnaise salsa.
In a lot of Latinx communities, it's mayo ketchup.
Or there's actually a word for it. I can't remember what it is. Starts with a C, but that they use. Yeah.
So depending on who you ask, this was either invented in Utah, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Brazil, the Middle East.
Some of these
Europe.
people have records going back to before 1900, though. So I think we're being a little disingenuous when we say there's a competition. There's the people who have been doing this for 100 years, and then there's white people in the United States who came up with it 40 years ago, or more accurately, were introduced to it 40 years ago, and they want to act like they made that shit up.
Now, I would actually...
because, the ingredients are mayonnaise and ketchup.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who wouldn't accidentally have stumbled upon that just by messing around at a barbecue one day?
You know who the first person to do this was? The first toddler left alone with ketchup and mayonnaise. That's the first person.
And the parents were desperate to grab some food, so they went ahead and ate what was off of the...
Yeah, it's two ingredients. It's like you don't get to claim you invented two ingredients that are everywhere.
And yet...
all the time.
It is amazing and delicious, and I love it.
It's got a nice blend of flavors. Here in the Pacific Northwest and a little bit to the south of us, it's popular in a lot of communities.
Yeah. Well, specifically Idaho and Utah.
Yeah, and neither one wants to admit the other one has.
It's the Mormon.
If you get up into Portland or Seattle, your main dipping sauce for fries is tartar sauce.
I also like tartar sauce. Yeah,
it works with I think it's the salt content and humidity in the air there.
Yeah,
that works. It doesn't work here.
I still do it though.
In parts of Oregon, you'll find ranch readily available for fries.
Ranch is good on nearly everything. Ranch is delicious.
You'll also find ketchup, but you aren't going to find fry sauce. And any kid is going to experiment when there are multiple options.
It's just, to me, the two ridiculous things of this are that you don't get to claim that you invented that. It's like
from somebody who grew up here who thought fry sauce was just a very Mormon thing, it was really cool to learn that Puerto Rico has that they've been using it forever.
Cool, but unsurprising.
Not surprising.
Yeah, it's like, well, obviously.
Exactly.
But, you guys have access to both ketchup and mayonnaise. You have this already.
But the fact that you can travel across the country and ask for fry sauce or mayo ketchup and people don't know what you're talking about, it's like, really? Come on, guys.
But what I didn't know is places I've been, Mexico, the Middle East, Britain, this is readily available.
Yeah.
It's just under different names.
In fact,
that is interesting.
McDonald's had fry sauce for a while. And they finally discontinued it because the only people who were demanding it were people in Utah and Idaho.
Yeah, it's popular here, yeah. But they got a lot of their potatoes here, so that made sense. Why would we do that?
And Jack in the Box has had fry sauce. It's kind of interesting. It seems to be what your main customer base is will determine which name it's going to fall under.
Well, that makes sense. That's all a cultural construct anyway.
And so what seems hilarious here is, by going with mayo chup, they've pissed off everybody.
They pissed off everyone.
But if they had picked mayonnaise salsa or fry sauce, they would have pissed people off even more.
Well, I mean, they're just trying to sell
sad.
stuff. Yeah, I think I just can't get over that people are upset about it at all.
I'm not. Yeah, see,
they've already done this. I
find it so fascinating because, I grew up with this stuff. We've always made our own, which is the way to do it. But it was really interesting to learn that the person who quote unquote invented it in Utah with the little burger place, that restaurant ended up turning into Arctic Circle, and so the Arctic Circle's original fry sauce is actually kind of like this region's original fry sauce, and that I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that is actually
that, fun. And I love Arctic Circle because, Yukon potatoes are the best.
Yeah, they are pretty good.
But it's also really common that when something has regional significance, there's a regional dish in multiple regions, that a national or international company is going to pick it up and not call it what anybody else calls it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're just trying to sell stuff.
Well, McDonald's called theirs special sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You could call it anything but mayo chup.
Actually, I think...
Chup? Really?
I think Jack in the Boxes was secret sauce.
Secret sauce. I mean, it's gone by a dozen names, and they chose mayo chup.
Yeah, that was a bad mistake. The major labels have tried to sell this stuff before, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, even the argument itself is kind of crazy. When it's
hilarious.
Yeah.
But Heinz has to have the entire condiment game under their wraps.
Now, what I think is really funny is the people who are already aware of it under whichever name are going to continue mixing it themselves. And the people who this is going to be a novelty to them will get to take part in what the rest of us already love.
Yeah. Aww, spreading the joy through mayonnaise ketchup.
Yeah.
Yes. So good.
And on that note,
I'm so hungry.
Mikey, thank you so much for joining us.
Don't forget the Atheist show is May 18th at the Visual Arts Center.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
be there. Will get tickets early.
Yes, and I will get the links to the pre-order for tickets in the show notes.
Excellent. And make sure to come to that and follow me on Facebook and Twitter and
his Instagram. Twitter is hilarious.
Just follow me on everything.
Yep.
See you guys later.
Lauren, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
And listeners, remember, not all those who wander are lost. Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/atheistnomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.
I'm not bragging on them.
Right? You and I need to sign up for that parasite study.
They do that. They can plant poop inside of you to help you lose weight. Are we recording?
We are now. Yep. I just
great.
hit record.
Hey,
Yeah.
guess what? They can plant poop inside you.
Yep.
Google it.
I missed the story.
Do you edit out these asides to yourself?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I kind of figured as much. It'd just be funny if you were that like genuine. Oh shit, I missed up my type A bullshit. Nobody knew about it until I mentioned it on the air.
Yep,
Okay,
it would
so
be great.
Previously,
Just not his style. It's fine. I'm not judging you. I love you who you are.
when there's actually conversation about it later, I'm more
Sometimes
likely to
you do.
leave it in. So
Did
like
we
maybe
just
this
I'm
one.
sorry we did that to you.
So
By the way, I love your process because organization is necessary for people like me, or we wouldn't do anything.
otherwise
would
we'd
get
spend
Yeah. It's fine.
2 hours talking about one topic.
Well, I'll spend way more than 2 hours. I just notice after 2 hours.
Okay, let's try something different.
Don't bunk her head.
Let her look at me
Oh, okay. Okay.
and try bouncing my knee.
Oh, and I lost Rocco.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh wait, I'm not going to do that with the noise because that's not good for the podcast.
I know, right?
Default daddy mode.